Welcome back, Tyler. What's going on?
Yay.
Happy Monday, and again, welcome back. What's new?
Just a bunch of fun stuff over here at Grassroots. Things are definitely, I think, the light is shining a little bit on springtime right now, and people are starting to think about, their upgrades to their farm and changes that they're making. So the phone's starting to ring a little bit more. We're starting to get more emails. So it's nice. That's like with winter coming, spring is also on its way. So yeah.
Well, it's good to hear people are thinking ahead because that's not normal. usually it's the rush, right?
Yeah, usually it's we should have placed this order 2 weeks ago, and now I need them yesterday. So in the world of custom, that's not very easy, but we do everything we can.
So, what type of clients are you seeing coming at you at this point in time? Are they all over the map?
I'd say it's pretty much half and half. We either have the small, I'm at home and I'm in a medical status and I'm going to grow in a tent or I'm going to grow in my basement. They're doing their 6 plants or their 12 plants or their 4 plants, depending on where you're at. And they really want to grow their own cannabis. Very passionate about having the highest quality possible and providing, a good quality medicine for themselves and their loved ones. So I think that's like, I would say that's probably the largest portion of our customer base at the moment. A lot of emerging states, a lot of places coming online. I was hearing from Michael at Sustainable Village the other day that I think it was Massachusetts or Minnesota, one of those M states that was setting it up where it was mainly going to be for home cultivation and cultivators at home, and they weren't going to do any commercial cultivation for a while. So it's very encouraging to see places, slowly getting into commercial and maybe, hey, let's open it up for our citizens. I wish that's what they did here, in California, but that obviously isn't the case.
No.
And then the other, yeah.
And it probably isn't Mass because Mass has been online for probably 5 years now. So it's good to hear that Montana, because they were definitely a holdout, is coming online. And like how many other states are really starting to talk about this?
It's kind of just is rolling in from a lot of different places. I would say the thing that sticks to me the most is Vermont. Getting a lot of phone calls from Vermont, and those seem to be somewhat of, commercial cultivators in fields and in greenhouses and also small home growers. Honestly, the most exciting stuff right now is happening in Australia. There's a lot happening down there in that emerging market. I know we talked about that a little bit last week. But a lot of grow stores coming online, and they're importing cannabis right now from other countries because they can't grow enough of it. And they're hoping to be a major exporter, considering Australia doesn't really export anything. They just pretty much import stuff.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, had a phone call coming in there. Sorry about that.
I didn't know that Australia was going big. That's really interesting. I know Thailand broke loose.
Yeah, Thailand. I think this year is going to be the year of just international kind of stuff going on, whether it be Thailand or today we got a request from Spain for 8 4x16 beds, which is huge for Spain. It seems like people are just doing small stuff out there. So be interesting to get into the commercial side of things in other different countries. We're definitely there for the whole small home growers when we can get there, but the commercial side of things is always nice because that helps pays the bills.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. And I noticed that there's a movement with the banking industry here in the U.S. They're talking about cutting that open finally.
Yeah, it'd be nice. We've got customers that have to have so many different business names and accounts and, and ways of getting through these things and trying to pay people. And gosh, just give them some clarity, give them some abilities to pay without cash. So that'd be nice. We've been waiting forever for that. So it needs to finally happen.
Well, let's dive right into back into the new amendment line that you're putting out. I'm really interested in hearing more about it.
Yeah, so we've got a few different versions of our liquid, which is good. I have
Another call must be coming in.
Well, I hope he's not picking up the calls, but yeah, I would say that's another call coming in.
Or he dropped hard.
Yeah, well, maybe it's the boss calling, and then he's got to pick up the call, right?
Oh, there you go. And it looks like he is on the phone. But anyway,
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to wait till he comes back on. Is there anything you wanted to talk about briefly, Ken? While we got the void.
Well, actually, yeah, I'm starting a new grow. It's going to be called the R&D grow. We're going to be showing it on the channel. I'm going to be doing all the different methodologies. So hydroponics, probably deep water culture, and of course the soils. Starting out with just super soils and then moving up to the horizontal beds. What would you suggest on the scientific side that you would like to see in a grow like that, where it's going to be the same basic plant done in the different methodologies?
Well, that's a great question. So I would say that hydroponically, nowadays there are organic non-salt versions of nutrients. So that's a huge breakthrough. Again, if our borders weren't so tight, I could send you Muncher juice, which is actually having some pretty good impact on the bridge project. They're actually ordered another 5-gallon jug of it.
Cool.
And so that's a great setup for that. DWC, I would probably encourage you to get koi fish. They tend to have a pretty good feed to conversion ratio. As far as subtler tank, you want a radial
flow. I'm probably not going to go as far as the aquaponics, just more of the feed cycle. So I'm probably not going to be doing a DWC as much as more of a drip, but I'll let Tyler and you guys talk back. Have you set it so that you're on airplane mode, Tyler, so we don't keep getting phone calls?
Let me do that real quick.
Then we don't have to worry about your dropping
out. That's the reason why he's the producer.
So I can put it on airplane mode. That's not going to take me off of Wi-Fi and disconnect me.
It shouldn't. It just should block incoming calls. Okay. But we'll see. If it does, then jump off, jump back on.
So are we ending at an hour today, or are we going full 2? And in an hour?
Can you hear us, Tyler?
I don't have a exact hard stop or anything like that. I think the office closes at 4:00 here. So.
Okay, we're really in trouble, Leighton. Okay, I'm gonna jump back off, guys. You guys carry on.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, we're just starting to talk about your new product line, so let's start there.
Yeah, sorry, I have a system that's connected to my cell phone, so if I'm away from my desk, it rings the Grassroots calls through my line. So I think we've stopped that now. Okay. Yeah, we've got a fungally dominant compost tea product, and we've got our normal, compost tea product here. These are facultative microbes. They're asleep in the bottle, so they're very tough and very durable. We've actually found it's cold and freezing temperatures that can hurt this product. Not like if you're shipping it and it gets really, really hot. It seems to be freezing temperatures do more harm to these microbes than anything else. But yeah, that's the microbe and plant food product line. It's a soil and liquid soil inoculant that's created with worm castings. We use 5 different types of worms, and we also feed them our microbial foods. So that's the big difference between our products and everybody else's products, is we give you the microbial foods we use to breed those masses in the beginning. The person that created this product line has the first ever registered product involving humic acid and microbes over 20 years ago. And they also hold several patents in multiple different parts of the agricultural industry. They've even created aerial surveillance programs to look at the health of plants. So the people that have created these products have put a lot of knowledge and a lot of field experience into inoculating soils and feeding microbes. And it's a product line I've been very successful with for the last 4 years. A lot of our customers are really starting to notice it, and I'd say the biggest thing that I really try to put out with this line is efficiency and efficiency of use. Considering we give you the microbe foods to keep the populations alive, you could use a heavy dosage of, the liquid inoculant and then microbe foods to build the population. And then you're just feeding that population, hoping to keep it and maintain it. Obviously, every once in a while, we want to add more microbes. I actually only do a weekly feeding of this product on my plants on a low dosage rate just to keep things moving. But in a certain sense, if you had like a really highly charged soil, let's say it's pumped up with all the nitrogen and potassium, it's NPK'd out in every possible way, you could still use these products. You just would not want to use a lot of the, let's say, veg food or bloom food. Maybe you would just want to use a little tiny pinch to activate it and get it going. So we have several customers that are using it, maybe a little bit as an activator and then feeding their system just to keep the microbes alive. Or if you're, needing nutrients in here, you could use this as a full-on plant nutrient system. So veg, bloom, and then wettable mycorrhiza. So this has got your trichoderma, this has got your endo, your ecto, and I love dipping roots in this rather than dusting the hole. I think dusting the hole is really good for those people that manufacture these products because you're using a lot of it in every single hole, and you're hoping for the roots to connect to the mycorrhiza, and then it just goes out from there. When we take those products and we add them into a 5-gallon bucket with liquid, maybe some other inoculants, maybe some other microbe foods, and we dip our roots in that, we're ensuring that connection of the mycorrhiza to the root system. And I like to kind of plan it out to where my root balls are a little dry, and then they act like just a sponge. So you stick them down in that bucket, they absorb up all the mycorrhiza touching the roots, breaks up the root ball a little bit, and then you set it right in the soil and get moving. So that's the big thing I'm making with this product line is we want people to be able to be very efficient with how they use things and how they're, thinking about the usage of these products and all the other products that they have together.
So, excuse me. Let's back it up a little. You said something about a combination of microbes and NPK. So you're talking about salt-based fertilizers? Some of your clients using both, like hybrid systems?
Yeah, we definitely do have a lot of people that are getting into living soil and still have just walls or say the storage room full of old nutrients they have. A lot of times they're still wanting to use that stuff and deplete it. This nutrient line can be used in this syngenics environment. I think there's a lot of people that are in that as far as living soil goes. They haven't maybe fully converted over. So this product line can definitely help solubilize those nutrients, help chelate those nutrients, and help move things forward. I obviously would take a huge point of caution because if you're doing that and you jump up your chloride levels or your salt levels too high, you're going to have some major issues in your system. So I definitely think it's possible for people to utilize this product line with all systems. I think you should be doing living soil and counting on the soil to provide for you. Yeah.
Well, you know where I stand with that, but we don't need to go there. I mean, I did a lot of extensive work early on in trying to figure out where the sweet spot with synthetic fertilizers and microbes were. And it was really tricky because you're absolutely right. If you're going heavy feeding, you get that salt buildup, and it's now you got to flush and you got to do all these other things that are detrimental to your microbial community. So it's not the ideal way, but I did get to a point where I was able to use very low doses of, regular Miracle Grow, ammonium nitrate, you name it, and still have pretty good results, although I did knock back the microbial diversity and community. So there was the need to re-up again periodically to maintain high level of microbial populations. So it is possible, but yeah, again, it's a kind of a slippery slope that you can get yourself in trouble very quickly, for sure. But I'm glad to hear that, that some people are still out there experimenting with it, because the combination, especially if you're using what I want to call more user-friendly salts, like mineral salts, not the fertilizers produced by natural gas distillation, but some of the other ones, again, you have to be really careful with it, but it's possible. So I'm glad to hear that your clients are still, trying this, experimenting that with these types of systems. Go ahead.
And Leighton, how do you feel about using sulfates in living soil systems? Is there alternatives, or is that what we just need to be using because it's...
Well, like for potassium, I'd recommend potassium silicate.
Yeah.
Way better than the sulfates. And unfortunately, the vast majority of those salt minerals are in the sulfate family. But if you look outside of that, especially if you go ag, big scale ag, you can find products that don't have the sulfate. They have another delivery system, because that's another one. Sulfur is very, very important, but if it gets too high, it can definitely whack chemistry. So I always recommend looking for an alternative first. If you can't, then check your sulfur numbers before you do it. And if you can't, if you're already high in sulfate, then you got to go back to what we call alternatives, like different types of meals that are more short term and not as long term as some of those sulfates. But you can pretty much find an alternative if you're looking hard enough. Because you're right, too much of one of these things can definitely throw the balance off.
I've heard of some growers talking about different options besides sulfates, but it never got real deep into it. And it's like, copper sulfate or manganese, or, that whole area and realm of them, it just seems like those are first recommended, so it's always interesting to see what other people are doing.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that copper sulfate is recommended as a nutrient, because actually it's a freaking pesticide. We use copper sulfate to treat different funguses. So if you're using that as a mineral, you're definitely knocking back your fungal species. And especially if you've invested in mycorrhizae and you're expecting them to maintain in between runs, you kind of shot yourself in the foot with that one. So yeah. I definitely encourage people to do more research and understanding the consequences of some of these mineral additions, because you can set yourself back pretty damn far pretty quick. That's for sure. Have you ever like specifically with your microbial products, have you done what we call quantitative or qualitative microscopy to kind of see where the sweet spot is during their lifespans?
As far as looking at the life and what's identified under a microscope?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had several people do that. I think the Catalyst Bioamendments people, Casey, Ernest, and some of those people, they've had a good look at our stuff and have had some deep talks with David Olson. And we've actually talked about possibly doing some collaborative work in the future, by using their boutique compost to be making some of this process. But, when we go through the manufacturing process of these things and we bring it to the facultative state, there's definitely some biology that's lost. I don't think there's any way that we can ever replicate what you get out of a handful of compost, out of one of these bottles. So it's like, they can see those different characters in there, and they can see the fungi levels. They can see a lot of those things, but there's still definitely some people missing from that group that can only be found in live compost, I feel.
Agreed, 100%. That was some of the other work that I've been doing with this the Muncher crew. Is they use a lot of facultative anaerobes in their process, which is great because it really does an amazing job of degrading and decomposing food waste at a very quick pace. But what was interesting was as the waste goes through the process, we start to see some of these other true aerobes like flagellates, amoeba, that are coming out of the end product, the output. So, and I haven't got the data back on it yet, but my gut feeling or my theory is that it's coming from the inputs in an endophytic form that's being released during the process and allowing them to survive due to the level of aeration and the proper temperature maintained. So again, learning curve, big time. But you know, in nature, we know for sure that there are anaerobic and aerobic pockets everywhere. So who's the bridge? Well, that's the facultative family. So even if you're only using pure facultatives in an aerobic environment, you will encourage what we call necromass, which is the built up biology, you know, everything from arthropods, worms, all the way down to single cell organisms that are stored in the soil systems or coming in on the air, wind, or water. So it's definitely like one of the things I learned early on in doing turning fields. So taking a field that had been in synthetic production for 50, 60 years and how do you turn that? So when originally, you know, I finished my work with Rodale and Elaine, I left there thinking, oh, I just got to go straight aerobic. And I found that if I landed pure aerobes on a field that had been heavily fertilized, what would happen was I couldn't turn it very quick. It would take multiple applications. So later on, I tried playing with the facultatives. And what I learned was that if I did one application of the facultative, so let's back it up a little so the audience understands what we're talking about here. So a facultative anaerobe is coming in an environment that is around 4 parts per million oxygen. 0 parts per million is anaerobic. Truly aerobic is 8 parts per million or greater. So you're right in the middle between the anaerobes and the aerobes. And what they did was they quickly turned that field to a point where I could, in 2 to 3 months, come back with a pure aerobe, and I would get explosive growth. So again, I think that this gentleman and your product line's approach to how to get that high population of aerobes is the proper first step. Instead of just going purely in with a, you know, like a Keisha and Casey's compost, because that's going to take time. It's going to take transition time for that to turn around. So again, I you know, kudos to him. And I hope Ken does get a hold of him at some point. We can get him on the show and talk more about his work, because I'm really interested in what he's done to get to this point. Especially, you know, you're talking about latest technologies, you know, mapping color spectrum of plants to determine, you know, pests and also nutritional levels. Really cool shit, dude. Really cool shit.
Yeah, he holds a lot of patents, and he's constantly trying to, you know, be at the edge of his seat with having the most latest data. And he always goes back to his success story was humic acid. You know, aerobic, anaerobic, facultative. That's obviously where they landed with facultative. But the true success, he said, was the amount of humic acid he uses in the microbe foods was the most impactful that they saw in all of their studies. So it's just such a big building block and so important to have in soil. And so that was like his big like hanging factor. Man, it's the humic acid. And
Yeah,
folic acid, you know. That's
like,
like
I credit that to everything I've ever accomplished as well. So I don't know if you know my backstory, but basically I take you know, highly bio-intensive compost, worm castings, fish brood products, and I put them in a machine to mechanically strip off all the microbes and the humic and fulvic acids. And so in the very first job I got out of Rodale was working with a gentleman, ecological landscape management, who was doing, you know, huge parks for state and federal government, as well as communities and you know, individual cities and towns. So he had a problem, and that was that all the work that he was doing was on engineered soil. Now, engineered soil is 99% sand, 1% organic matter. And these companies would come in and they would use a nitrate fertilizer, or sometimes a combination of nitrate and ammonia fertilizers. Well, the problem with nitrates is that the organisms have to break down the carbon, in other words, the organic matter, to build the fuels so that they can break down the nitrates. So the percentages of, that 1% was, and sometimes not even there, was negligible. So how do you get fungi and protozoa to take hold in sand? You can't. They just wash right through. So in the combination of my process, we were able to spray what I lovingly refer to as chocolate water, because it's so thick that you can't see through it. And all those superfine particulate are magnetically charged through kymatics, which is another whole rabbit hole. But they bond together with the sand almost instantly. And we would go back after 2 applications in a month or 2, and you'd have chocolate sand now. And that was tightly bonded enough that it would hold the protozoa, but that carbon source was now present for the fungi to take hold. But we did not affect the structural properties of the sand. So it didn't turn muddy when it rained or when too many people walked on it. And that's what started me down the rabbit hole of humic acid. And that's when I met Bob Faust, or Dr. Robert Faust, bioag, and he just took me down that friggin' whirlpool into a whole nother world of trying to understand how complex humic acid is. I mean, I forget how many different individual compounds, but it's in the thousands. So every time somebody breaks a piece off as a food source, whether it's a fungi or a bacteria, now you've got multiple different compounds that continue to feed the whole ecosystem. So I believe 100% your supplier was spot on with the power of humic acid as a jump start to getting to that true ecology, or what I want to call complete soil food web. So it's interesting that these parallels happen. We don't know each other, but yet we came to the same conclusion as a result of the work in the field that we had done.
yeah, that's like the way naturally things come together and progress, and it's great to see that those things are aligning like that. And it's one of those great bonding things. It's like I look at humic acid as almost just like food is for us. We want to get together and we need to break bread together, and and you get to bring those lines down and create better friendship and community. And it's like humic acid is the same thing in the soil in a certain sense. I'm sure there's a lot of characters in the soil like that, but I think that's a good analogy.
Yeah, another way to look at it too is that it's almost like a complete Thanksgiving banquet, because you're bringing in everybody's bringing in a dessert or a bottle of wine or bottle of scotch or whatever, and everybody's getting together, as a family, as a community, and enjoying, incredible amount of all different types of food. And that's the other power of humic acid, is that what it does to chemistry is amazing. It makes chemistry play nice. 2 clients have called me within the last year with potassium levels that should have been toxic to the plant, and salt toxic, toxicity and potassium toxicity, and neither one of them were struggling. And I was like, all right, what is going on here? Tell me what you're using. And both of them told me they are using a humic acid almost weekly, if every other week, if not weekly. So again, that's the power of that compound, is that it not only supports incredible high levels of biology, but it also forces the chemistry to play nice. It's almost like a chelate.
Like a buffer.
Yeah, it gets deep, dude. But it's called sharing electrons or exchanging electrons. And as soon as you do that, you can either unlock something or you can lock it up. And again, this is a geobiochemical process that's super complex, but that's why it works. I can't explain the biogeochemical interactions because that's so complex. I don't think a supercomputer could actually figure it out because it's happening and changing all the time, and it's constantly in flux. So there's no one point you could say, oh, well, it broke this apart. Well, then this other one bonded them back together in a different format, or shared an electron or stole an electron. So that's changed the whole picture again. But yeah, that is the power of humic acid. Is that it's just.
And remember, guys, we actually have Leah Oram with BioAg, or not BioAg, Quad Ag. We have a discount code on their humic and fulvic products in the description, so you guys can check.
Yeah, thanks for giving her a plug, Ken. She's a great woman. She's doing a lot of hard work, and the fact that she brought a fulvic acid, human grade fulvic acid to the market is huge. Like, we should all be taking that. I mean, that is definitely goes right in at cellular level, helps to build the inner and outer shell walls, helps to increase the ability for the individual cell to function at a higher level. And we used to get it in our food, but we don't anymore. And we used to get it when we rolled around and made mud pies, but we don't do that anymore.
And that's actually not Quad Ag, that's the Ironclad. And they're coming out with one for animals as well, to help with, let's say, natural gas in animals.
Yeah, and health, overall health too. I mean, that was a podcast that was really, really powerful on the understanding of how this product was helping animals digest better, build healthier tissue within themselves, and therefore healthier for us who are consuming those animals. So again, very, very powerful shit. I'm sorry, we went way off the fucking topic there. So let me reel myself back in this time.
Yeah, humic acid is amazing though, and it's obviously it's good friend fulvic acid. I'm not very good at knowing what the differences are in between the two, but I think it's fulvic acid that's more rare or not as available as the humics, right?
Yep, you're spot on. As a matter of fact, Bob in his process ends up with tremendous amount of excess humic acid to get that small fraction of the fulvic. So I think fulvic makes up about 1%, maybe 2% of an extraction from lenadite, brown coal. Is the process he uses. Personally, I use plant matter to extract the humic and fulvics. So when I was in full production, I would get out of 100 pounds of my end product, I would get about 5 gallons of humic acid and 120 gallons of 5 gallons of fulvic and 120 gallons.
Okay.
And
out
then
of 100 pounds.
Yeah, out of 100 pounds of compost that I extract. So there you go. It's pretty close to 2 or almost 3% that you can extract. A good trick to doing it is if you take well-developed or mature compost and you add it to water, turn it into a slurry, and then screen out the solids. So now you have a humic acid, and then you take those solids and you put them in a wine press or any kind of food press, and you slowly press it. If you go too quick, you're going to corrupt the fulvic. But if you go really slow, the only thing that comes out of it is this golden liquid, which is the fulvic acid. So anybody can do this at home. It's not complicated. So especially if you make your own vegan compost, you can make your own food grade, human grade, freaking humic or fulvic acid as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's some
powerful on foliar. I mean, it just blows the plant up.
I'm glad you said that, because that was usually one of my key things that I used when I'm doing foliar sprays is some full power fulvic acid, I think, from BioAg.
Yep, full power is very, very well manufactured product. It's got zero corruption in it. As clean as the day is long. And again, he uses biogeochemical interactions to get the release of that from the lenadite, whereas most people just use acids and bases, which end up with a residual coming through on your product. And I think that woman is doing a similar process where she's using, biology as well as chemistry to unlock the two different components.
It's a huge relief when I mention a product and you can back it up with actually like scientific information of why it's good to be use it, instead of mentioning a product and then somebody saying you don't want to use that. It's like, okay.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
I've been in the trenches too long, brother. But I'm definitely impressed with your supplier's methodology and approach, especially in the hanging and the facultatives to get to the pure aerobes is genius.
Yeah, his main customer base would be wineries here in California, and he's doing a lot of just conventional ag in the Midwest, corn, soybeans, a lot of basic stuff like that, and they're doing applications just a couple times a season. Usually like a pre-planting application before they put their seeds out, or before they get their plants out into the field. So that's kind of like the big portion, along with several seasonal treatments on golf courses as well, to help that grass just eat up all that decaying matter and keep things going. So we kind of get to head up the cannabis side of things for him, which is great.
Yeah, I'm impressed that he's been able to penetrate the golf course market, because that one's another one. It's just, I mean, they're almost worse than farmers because of their schooling. They go to this expensive process of getting certified as a greenskeeper, and it's all NPK. And in my experience, the ones that I worked with took so much time to convert them that once I got them converted, a new president would come into the golf course or the golf club, and he'd bring his guy in with him, and so I'd lose 2 to 3 years worth of work in turning a course. So it's exciting to hear that he's penetrating that market, because if you ever look at golf courses, there's always running water.
They're always green. They're always green.
But everything is washing into those streams, rivers, and lakes that are surrounding them. And, that's always been my biggest beef, that and the fact that, the farming community doesn't put buffers, like at least 100-foot, 200-foot buffer between the edge of the field and any natural waterways. Those two little things could create such a huge change in the damage that we've done in our aquatic ecosystems. I was, in the beginning of my work, I did a lot of time. I spent a lot of time going to different streams and creeks and ponds and even rivers in the western part of Connecticut, which is very similar to Vermont. I mean, it's very, very rural. And I would never find rotifers, and rotifers are the foundation. They're a facultative anaerobe, but they're the foundation of the aquatic food web. In other words, a lot of the smaller single cell organisms, like the frog eggs, fish fry, that's what they eat to get to the next level where they can start to digest algae, insects, and other things. So without that bridge, it's impossible for them to get up the next chain to start actually eating the other foods that are available. So that's my bitch with golf courses and farmers that don't create buffers between waterways. But to have him penetrating those markets, that's huge. That is huge.
Yeah,
really.
I hate to keep talking about somebody who's not here or anything like that, but I do want to say David's biggest claim to fame is his scientific environmental report that he did in the Bay Area. Single-handedly stopped the pipeline going right through the Delta. So he proved several species were going to be lost in his environmental impact report. And that's kind of his biggest impact, is that he was able to stop that from happening several years ago.
Well, that's fantastic. Man, he's my hero now.
Yeah. I think he's actually up in Washington or Alaska helping count the salmon.
Right.
The last 20 years.
Nice. So is he an elderly gentleman? Is he still working full time?
Amazingly, his dad Gus, that started the company, is still in the email chains, and I get to see Gus every once in a while. Gus is about an 86-year-old man, and he was the one who was working with NASA in the beginning to develop these products and help digest poop on the space station. But his son David Olson now has taken the reins and has taken this a lot further. David is, oh gosh, I hate saying whether people are old or young or not, but I think he's in his 50s, his early 50s. Yeah, he's David the Microbe Man. So there's a couple of I did a Future Cannabis project. If you look up just Tyler Grassroots on YouTube or David Olson, you'll see we did about a 2-hour intro on FPC a couple years back talking about his products.
Nice.
He's got his big chalkboard in the background with all of his writings and teachings and all kinds of stuff like that. So it gets very deep whenever we go to the manufacturing facility.
Definitely got to talk to this guy.
We reached out to him. We're just waiting for him to respond. We think he's maybe is in Alaska counting salmon. That's why he hasn't got back to us yet. So we'll have him on, definitely.
Which makes sense. Yeah. All right. So let's talk more about some of these other products that that he's providing to you, and that is let's talk about the microbial foods. So are those like rock powders or
mainly rock? Yeah, you're right. You totally picked it up. That provides us with 30 different minerals. So a complex rock dust is very important. He's also adding in calcium, also adding in it's 0.5% sulfur, 0.4% iron. The guaranteed analysis is 0.50 and then 3.0 for like the MPK ratio that's on there. Okay. So David describes it as it's everything you need in one bag, because normally we sell them in 1 pound pouches. So the microbe foods are everything you would need to feed microbes in as far as David's opinion, as far as that goes, of what he feels feeding microbes should look like. In his opinion, it's everything you need. Along with there is a surfactant, yucca, in here automatically. And then there also is fish hydrolysate in the veg formula. That would be the main. So just a straight fish powder. I believe it's like a 0 or a 15, 0, something like that, or 1500. But that's probably the main nitrogen source in there, and the other different minerals. Everything I've learned from David is we want to feed these microbes a complex, very vast food source. If we feed them one thing, they're going to get concentrated on one thing. They're going to get good at eating one thing, and then they're going to breed a certain population. So his goal was also to have the most diverse food source possible. So in between all the different items in here, I think he said there's up to 200 different kinds of food sources in here for microbes. L-amino acids, surfactants, vitamins, and enzymes as well. So we've had a lot of...
Is it powder or liquid?
Oh, 100% powder. Very soluble powder that will actually kind of disperse in the air a little bit. It's so soluble. The only problem we've had with these products is we highly, highly recommend using your liquid first, pouring it out, and then closing the cap. Because if you have this cap open and then you start using the powders can aerosol into the air and they could settle into the bottle. So, this bottle doesn't smell. It doesn't stink. It smells like raw dirt. There's no real smell to this product. But if it does smell, that means it was activated and you probably shouldn't use it. It's good for 24 hours if it's activated, but most likely if you activated it and you go back weeks later and you crack it open, you got some foul smell to it. It's gone anaerobic and we need to call me for replacement at that point. Unless it was obviously your fault and order more. But I think that's the only problem that we've really had is if you leave the main bottle open and you start pouring your powders out. This is a fine talcum powder kind of dust. And that's why, a lot of times if I'm lazy, I've got plants that I just top dress with it. And then my dad comes back a day or two later and waters them in a normal process, and I get my feeding done.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's the beauty of those flowers. Again, it's not powder; it's a flower. It's so finely ground that it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um, and I love again the concept of not only providing that flour, which will naturally stick to compost. And I think what probably drove a lot of his initial work was looking at, all right, it takes so long for these microbes to actually start disintegrating clay and silt and sand, that to get those minerals, why not just go right to square one and attack rock and turning it into powder, as a way to create more surface area and something that will stick to the organic matter, and provide those nutrients long term. Again, it's like something that, yeah, I wouldn't say long term is the correct term. Sandstone and clay is long term, but those powders are what I would call medium release. So they're still going to be present to some degree, months after you apply them, unless your microbial community just got crazy. Oh, I guess we did lose him.
Yeah, I don't know. As he said, he's at the office, so everything gets directed directly to his phone. So that may be overriding something in the back end. Hard to say.
Yeah, or maybe his battery, because there he is. You're back.
Did you plug your phone in?
No, I got another phone call through our automated system. So it's not the phone calls aren't going through the cell signal, they're going through the Wi-Fi because I'm connected to my computer, and I can do the next one at home. Maybe that would be better if I go home, and then we could have like the view of my garden in the background and plants and the stupid conference room.
Yeah, we don't want to take you away from your work. You're doing a very important job. So prefer to keep you there so you could do that, and we'll just deal with you bouncing off and bouncing back on.
Thank you for the patience, Leighton. I appreciate that.
Dude, of course. No stress, man. No stress. So yeah, again, we were just talking about the powders themselves, or the flowers, as how available they are, versus the sand, silt, and clay. And does he label like the specific rocks that he's using to create these flowers, or is it just like the nutrients that came from those rocks?
If you're okay with me leaving the room for a quick second, I can grab this full sheet, like kind of description that goes through it real quick, and I can kind of break. Yeah, one second.
That we can talk about it. Hey Ken, you want to pop on and make any announcements?
Not really. Other than we're going to be starting the new show. We've got a gentleman named Rod Fridd. He used to work in the hockey industry. He was a fighter, and so he's got a lot of damage, 70 concussions. He's going to start a show about what he's growing as well, and how it's helping him with his problems. And we're gonna look at bringing on different sports figures to talk about using cannabis and some of the benefits that they're seeing in their lives from cannabis use. So that's another new show that's going to be starting here probably in the next month or so. And there he's back.
That's fantastic, Ken. Kudos.
Keep trying, brother. Keep trying. The more people that learn that it's all about the biology, we're going to heal this planet one cannabis farmer at a time.
There you go. There you go.
So this product is 6% humic acid derived from leonardite, fish protein hydrolysate, soy protein hydrolysate, calcium. I'm gonna murder this one. Lignosulfate and seaweed. So no, it doesn't go too deep into the rock dusts, but we do have heavy metals testing done on all of these products, and everything is nice, clean, and clear as far as that goes. We've never had anybody balk at any of our testing as far as the heavy metals go. 20,000 different species of beneficial bacteria, fungi, and protozoa in the main product. He actually has several different kinds of foods for microbes. So
Okay.
these are just the two basic foods we have for microbes, which would be veg and bloom. That's just keeping it simple for the cannabis industry. And he's got several different versions of the liquid that I don't sell. They're just a little bit too complex for the cannabis industry so far. The next food type that he has that I have in stock, and we used to sell it on our website, but we've just backed out of it, was the calcium food or seafood. The seafood is a very interesting product, stimulates growth of beneficial microbes capable of consuming chitin-based proteins. When you have a problem with chitin-based insects like aphids, spider mites, caterpillars, root aphids, fungal diseases, our microbes are trained to irritate those bugs as well. So that is just by changing the food. We keep the same liquid, but then you change the food and we change what those microbes are doing for you as well. He also has a salt buster program, so microbes that are specifically trained to remediate salt from a program as well, and a specific food based off of that. And he also has a lot of really low price frass as well. So he's an importer of frass. And we're selling frass for, I think, like $8 a pound or something like that.
So that would be insect frass.
Where can we find this place? Because you're saying it's not on your website anymore?
A lot of these products are not on our website anymore. We've just gone with just the basic veg bloom and our other stuff. But you can contact me and I can sell you any of these products. We've got our 5 times concentrate version of the liquid. Normally this comes in a 2.5 gallon jug, but he was able to dehydrate out the water. And we are able, I have the 5 times concentrate version of this. I should grab the bottle real quick if you guys are okay with me walking out again. Yeah.
Please, by all means. I'm just wondering if that's so dehydrated that it's powder again.
No, it's still liquid.
Oh, it's still liquid.
Yeah.
The only way I've been able to maintain a high level of microbial community is in a liquid suspension was do what's called a triple or quadruple wash. So I use the same water, but I use new compost every time. But it's very volatile because there's just such a huge biological oxygen demand in the liquid that's left that it can be problematic. So I wonder if you can make a pH suspension or something with the 5 times concentrated.
Let's see if you can see some of the species that are on here. This is hold on one second here, guys.
Spin it.
Concentration levels.
Turn it a little bit toward the camera, other way. There you go, so that we can see the species. Looks like a lot of bacillus.
Bacillus. This is really bad, but I can obviously send you a copy of this. Would probably be the best thing to suspend up on the screen.
Yeah, it's just because you're moving that it's hard to see it. But
yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, so if you send me a picture of it, of course you can't do it on your phone right now, but if you sent me a picture of the box, I could bring it up. You're kind of using your phone right now, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. It's probably something to do with that. The bacillus species is just such a tough little motherfucker. You can almost put it in any condition and not kill it. What I've found that a lot of the more specialized organisms are very sensitive. Like you can't breed them in a lab. They have to have the right conditions, or they cyst up. They don't divide. So again, in the work that I've done, when I get into those higher concentration levels, the client has to use it immediately upon receiving it, or put it in suspension, keep it bubbling, because otherwise, like you said, it goes anaerobic. And the only beef I have with a product going anaerobic is that now you've got what we call a nutrient solution. So it's basically all of the nutrients that were in those individual species that have died that cause that noxious smell to come out. The nutrients are still there. Wow, you're doing the space shuttle?
I didn't even touch anything, and it rotated on me. I'm not sure what happened there.
There
we go.
Is that they're mobile in soil solutions. So, it smells bad. You pour it on the soil. As long as it doesn't rain or you don't water, those nutrients will quickly be consumed by the biology and the plants, because they're both biologically as well as plant available at that point. I mean, a classic example of that is in Vermont. Every spring you have all of the farmers, all the cow farmers up there taking their lagoons, which was all the manure they stored all winter long, which will take your breath away if you get close to them. And then they apply them on their fields, and for the 24 hours, it stinks to high heaven. But after that 24, 36-hour period, there's no odor left, because, again, everything was consumed. The only problem is that if you get rains after you apply it, you're washing it down into the rivers, streams, and lakes, and that's causing the same problem that we have with NPK salt-based fertilizers.
Is that a way of them dealing with that waste, but it's also benefiting them in the field? Because I always just looked at that as just a nasty process. It's like
it is a very nasty process. But in nature, typically we'd have herds of animals come through and do just that, just shit and puke and give birth and leave all kinds of stuff behind. And then nature would break it down, and that's what kept the cycle of life going. So it's only bad when you are applying that stuff irresponsibly. Like, if you know it's going to rain tomorrow, if you applied it today, shame on you, because you are polluting. That's bad. But if you're watching the weather and paying attention and say, oh, it's not going to rain for three or more days, then it's no problem, because it's going to get chewed up within the first 24 to 36 hours. And I mean, they have tremendous explosive corn growth, and that's all they use. They don't use, well, sometimes they do supplement a little bit of nitrogen if they didn't get the plant reaction that they needed quick enough. The old saying, corn needs to be knee-high by 4th of July. So if it isn't knee-high by 4th of July, some of these guys will go back in and apply other things. But for the most part, it's a closed loop. They feed the cows poop, the poop goes in the lagoon gets used up in the spring, and then they start the process over again. But it does smell like hell.
Yeah, you don't want to be that operator dishing that stuff out. It's pretty nasty.
I used to truck through Washington. We'd cross the border to all the dairy farms, and you go, yes, fresh dairy air.
Dairy air. I love it. All right. So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about with his product line that you're working with?
I would say he's doing a lot of experiments right now with inoculated biochar and inoculating it with certain species of fungi. He's found that the only way to get those species to survive is with a live root system. So he's experimenting with inoculating small portions of biochar with roots in them. So, like, in a certain sense, by the point a customer would want to use it, you would have to, take that plant, kill that plant, which most likely would be like a corn or a soybean plant. And then you would be able to take that little sack and then extract that out, do like a compost extract, and be able to utilize that stuff. So he's got a lot of really interesting stuff that he's doing, and he also created an incubator for a lot of the species that he's using, so he can expand those populations himself, and he can purchase commercially available versions of it and just recreate those. I would also say he's got a special process for brewing this stuff in the winter compared to the summer. And I would really love David to talk about some of the tools he uses too to monitor these populations and the oxygen levels during the brew process. Well, some of that stuff's obviously getting into his proprietary stuff of how he makes a product he probably doesn't want to talk about, but there's some really cool tools that are used. I did a little photo shoot at his facility years ago, and they have this super like big machine, and it sticks a probe down in the water, and it monitors the levels of oxygen. And sometimes he's used spa pumps, these cool spa pumps that have like a 2.5 inch hole on like a 10-foot piece of PVC pipe, so it goes down into the bottom of the container, and it's adding even extra oxygen in there. So he's like the ultimate compost tea brewing geek, with the microscope there, and then looking at this stuff himself to evaluate those populations, is what he does as well. Yeah, he's out there in Clarksburg within all the wine industries, and doing his thing. And I think the most exciting thing he's done is we should be hearing from the CDFA in the next couple of weeks for the fungally dominant version. Once the fungally dominant version is approved by CDFA and they recognize all the different species he has, then we can turn it loose on our website and start selling it on a bigger level.
Nice. Well, exciting stuff. Again, people like this that are innovators and being boldly going where no one else has gone before and trying to understand and crack some of these processes to get the public to have access to it. Those are my heroes, dude, right there and then. So I'm glad that you're working with them and getting the word out about these products, because personally, everyone's like, oh, competition. I'm like, no, you don't understand. The market is so big and has such a huge demand that there could be millions of these people out there, me and him and everybody else that's doing the hard work, Casey and Keisha. There could be millions of us, and we'd still never have to directly compete because of the need for these products to get out into the masses. I mean, when I originally started, I looked at the lawn care industry, landscape industry. I mean, you talk about a footprint. You've flown over the country and looked out your window, you can see, farmers' fields, but you get into residential areas and everybody's got a lawn, and all of those lawns are being treated synthetically. And so, that was where I thought I could have the biggest impact, but I got the most resistance because people didn't want to change. They did. Even though you told them, hey, look, you pay every year $50, $100 for your fertilizer program. I could come in and charge you $150 twice, $300 in 1 year, and you never have to do it again. But it only makes sense. Yeah, you paid up front for it, but they don't get it. It was like, no, I'm gonna stick with what I'm doing. And I'm like, yeah, but your kids are out there rolling around this, your pets are walking in this and dragging it into the house, and you're not concerned about that while you shop at Whole Foods, right? That was another one of those, that was so frustrating. But we're definitely seeing an increase in land care professionals saying, hey, enough is enough. My guys have to wear all these suits when they're spraying herbicides now, which we didn't have to do before, but a lot of people got sick, and maybe there's a better way to doing this. So I think that the eyes are starting to open in that industry as well.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think I was just going to say his big battle is making this to where every farmer could use it. And that's why they're doing the 5 times concentrate version of it, is so you can fit what's in a 5-gallon bucket that's hard to carry around in something that's in a jug form that the farmer can throw into the back of his truck. And then, you go out to a hectare and then you add in, gunk of this, and it goes out to the whole system. That's kind of the process he has to have with a lot of some of these growers, because they want it to be now. They want it to be fast, and they want it to be just like they use those synthetic products. Mm-hmm. So I think that's part of his challenge, is trying to create something that's user-friendly for those commercial farmers, but then also something that's going to impact everybody on every level.
Fantastic. Do you know what size market he has at this time? I mean, does he ever share like how big his client list is?
Yeah, definitely. I don't really know a lot of that information. I would say that would be good things for him to comment on, because he can comment on specific wineries. I think that's kind of, he's what do they call the whole wine industry? Is viticulture,
Yeah,
I believe. Viticulture. So he's very deep in viticulture, and he is a massive wine enthusiast. Um, and so I would say that's some of his most prestigious stuff because people know the names of these wineries.
Yep.
And his big thing is he'll come in and he'll take soil samples, he'll look at them, and he'll help them out with their irrigation along with their biology. Because most of the time he says it's a bigger picture of, maybe they're on a layer of rock or granite, or maybe the irrigation sets aren't getting in there like they need to. There's a lot of really interesting stuff, and it's kind of like the only way to learn this stuff is to be out in the field and see how they treat certain conditions, and personalize a solution to every farm. And I think that's one big important thing about farming is it's never going to be the same on every single farm. Like that's one big thing I'm realizing lately is you can't have a blanket treatment that's just going to work everywhere. That's just not correct. It's just a massive. The one thing I'm very guilty of, I'll be this upfront, is oversimplifying very complicated things. So it's like you can't oversimplify it. It's got to be scientifically driven on that, based off of that site.
Well, don't beat yourself up about oversimplifying things, because a lot of times that's the critical first step, is to oversimplify it. So people say, "Oh, it's really that easy," and then you go, well. Maybe not totally that easy, but at least you got their attention, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you'd like to talk about today? Anything else that you're working on, or new products that you're producing?
Here's an interesting one. A triangle shaped pot. Isn't that weird? The funny, we run into a lot of like weird requests here at Grassroots, and I shared this on Instagram earlier this week because I just thought it was so cool and different. We've had so many people that reach out to us and want to make different shapes and different sizes, and they expect it to hold its shape and hold its size. So you can see this is perfectly a triangle at the bottom here. But once you add soil into it, it turns into a perfect circle, and it goes round.
Interesting.
The gravity of the soil will pull things down, so it needs like a frame. So that was one thing I put out on social media this week, is we love getting these really interesting requests and weird things, and we'll satisfy whatever it is. And the customer still wants to buy 4, so he can put them in his 2x4 tent, and he understands they're going to go round, so just kind of fun. We're changing the design on a couple of our smaller pots. We make transplanters where they got Velcro on both sides for transplanting. We're changing the design so it's going to go from a square to a full circle, which is great. So you can kind of see it looks like a perfect 90-degree angle, sides and squares. And our main sewer, David, has created a new design. So it's going to be completely round, and it's going to save us 20 seconds in manufacturing, which is a huge savings, guys. This is like nice. 20 seconds is massive. So, working on those kind of efficiencies, gearing up for next season, hoping to just do better than we did last year. The last 2 years in the cannabis industry have been in a massive decline. There's no hiding that. The cannabis industry has gotten kicked in the teeth several times, and this is the year where it's going to stand up and get going. It's going to charge forward, and I think we're all proponents of that. That's the reason why we're here today, is we've got to empower our customers to know the right directions of ways they can go. And, allowing those people to know they can reach out to us and we can help them. And we're here like willing to just spend a lot of our time on the day on the phone with them, and just hoping that they have success and they become so successful that they breed more customers like them that are more successful. So, as I tell people this all the time, your success is my success. I'm gonna steal your success, and I'm gonna tell other people about it, because that's the only way I can be successful, is boasting about my customers that are doing great. We have some people that are really big fans of yours in Tennessee. Have you heard of why is this leaving my brain right now? Fishpoop.com or Ounce of Hope. They're out of Tennessee. They do aquaponics, and they're doing your.
I haven't heard of fishpoop.com. I know there's fishbrew.com, but they're up in Massachusetts. And yeah, there is a couple clients that I have down in Tennessee that are trying to really, convert a lot of people to living soils and using microbes. So it's nice to hear that they're circling back and getting back to you. I mean, that's like getting a hug, dude. That your hard work that you did in the field is now circling back to the community as a whole, and lifting all the boats equally. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, they're in Tennessee and they have a deep water culture like section of the room, and then the other section of the room is 2 living soil raised beds, and they've got your layering technique in there. And then the other room is their aquaponics, where they've got all their fish, and then that's what's feeding the soil, feeding the deep water culture system. And then they remediate that fish poop out and then sell it as a fertilizer. That's what, hence the fishpoop.com. And that's Ounce of Hope is their social media. So just super, super cool guys. Definitely somebody that should be checked out. Ounce of Hope or Ounce of Cope on social media.
So Ken, did you get that information?
I'll have Tyler send that to me so that I can reach out to them and try to get them on to describe exactly what they're doing.
It's such a cool system. In the same room to have deep water culture and then living soil beds right next to each other. It's like they post photos and people's minds just kind of break.
That is cool. That is cool.
Oh, you're gonna hurt me again, Tyler. Oh, stop it. So do you have to run, Leighton?
I mean, I could run. I did a 10-hour day on Sunday just so that I'd be prepared for today because I knew it was going to be chaotic. I thought I caught up a week ago, and then last week I got behind again. So yeah, if I can
actually catch up.
Yeah, and if Tyler, if you want to come back on again, please, by all means, you are a guest at any time you want to, pop back on and share, and maybe you can come on with Dave when we get him back.
Sounds like I'm going to have to wrangle Dave up and maybe even he's kind of got a whole family there, a whole group of people that are helping him out there. And like I said, his dad Gus is really what started it back in the day. So he's a 2nd generation farmer, and they still have they have 1,000-acre peach farm. That's like right there. And they're doing apple ciders and really cool stuff. So I can't come back on without having David. I've talked way too much about him. So
right.
Well, let's get to the one question that we did have. And I think, Leighton, that you could help the person on this. Question to everybody. After 5 cycles, 1.5 years, how much biology can I keep alive when I reset my 4x8 200-gallon bed? Am I back to square one?
No, you're not. You're not back to square one. You're still going to have what's called necromass. So you're going to have a large amount of biological cysts that are going to remain in that form until their environment comes back. Would I up it? Yes, I would. I would recommend products like what Tyler has. Those those basic minerals and nutrients to really bump up whatever's there. And then I would recommend that you do send off to a soil food web consultant and get a quantifier, get an idea what is going on there, and where you need to make improvements, because we can always
we have a soil food web scientist in Cali, Alluvial Soil Labs. We have a discount code for them, and they're doing both biology and normal soil testing.
Nice.
I haven't heard of
having them on with you.
Perfect. Awesome. Look forward to it.
Now, if you want to jump, Leighton, I got a couple of questions for Tyler on pots. If you want to jump off.
Cool. I will. Thank you.
Okay. Love you, Leighton. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Leighton.
We have another one of your friends coming back next week.
Nice.
Yeah, we're gonna get an update from. I can't remember which state they're in. And now I can't remember his name, and he's going to shoot me for it. Well, you'll have to wait until next week to find out.
You can text me later.
Okay, guys. Bye, Leighton.
Hey, thanks so much for all the work you do, Ken, behind the scenes. Tyler, keep up the good work, my friend. You are a patriot and a dedicated person to bringing the knowledge out to the world. So thank you guys both.
Thank you.
All right. Peace out, guys.
Bye, Leighton. So my question is basically on the style of pots, because I know that a lot of the pots have went to the rubber lining or plastic lining inside. Are you still making the other ones? And what's the difference between the two for people like you have your bottomless fabric where you don't have the lining? What are people looking for when they're going into pots for the different applications?
Yeah, the living soil pots with the liner on the inside, people have told us it's the greatest thing to hit organic growing in 20, 30 years, which is amazing. I can't believe people are comment with that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to it, it really depends on your environment and your situation. And so if you're on the East Coast in a very humid environment, maybe you're in Hawaii, you don't need a living soil pot in those really high humid environments because maybe your soil is not going to dry out. Maybe it's staying moist like it is. Maybe you don't have dry pockets. It's like the living soil pot was created to fix issues that growers have commonly with soil. And let's talk about a normal fabric pot first, a circle with no liner. And you put a soil in that, you put a plant in that. Let's talk about how it dries out. So you put it outside, it's going to dry out from the sun or from your grow light down, and that's going to be the main way it dries out. But if you don't have that liner, it also dries out from the sides inward. Right. Now, if you have it elevated off the ground, it's also going to dry out from the bottom up. So now you've got drying from the top, from the sides, and from the bottom. So you've got drying in a 360 going into the circle. It's completely unnatural. You don't ever really have systems that dry out like that. Like it'd be like growing in sand in a certain sense. So that living soil liner holds it in around the sides and makes it so the moisture levels are the same from the top to the bottom all the way through. So I'd say that's the biggest difference. And I think we'll always be making normal fabric pots, whether I like it or not, but just because of people's climates and people's situations. If you're on the West Coast and it's 100 degrees for 10 days, this living soil pot is going to make it to where you only have to water once a day. Some people have to water 2 or 3 times a day, which honestly it could not break your well system, but I mean, like, how overused is that? Where's our efficiency? So, I think that's why a lot of people are using the lined pots. And, it was discovered by people wrapping the outside of their pots with saran wrap.
Yeah.
Go wrap a fabric pot with saran wrap and watch a mushroom pop up 24 hours later. And it's like, oh, the biology was there. It was there. It just wasn't given the right environment to thrive. When if you take that same pot on the East Coast, you don't need the liner. You just need the fabric pot and you have that. So, the living soil pots are amazing. They're a game changer. And I think for indoor growers, that's where it's going to be the most impactful because that liner is holding in humidity. So if you go and water that soil and then you have a dehumidifier or you have your exhaust system, that liner is holding in a lot of that moisture on the sidewalls. And in large facilities, like Steve Cantwell reported, he can just wrap his beds and he sees a 10% savings on his energy bill because his dehumidifiers are running 10% less because the beds have it contained in themselves rather than it just seeping out everywhere and drying out. So indoors, I would use anything but a living soil pot or a living soil lined pot or a saran wrapped pot, whatever you want to do there. And, outdoors, it depends on your climate, depends on where you're at.
Okay. So for me, because of what I'm going to be doing, in a lot of ways, you have that bottomless fabric pot. So if I'm transplanting into a bed, not just another small pot, I'm better off to use something like that where I can take my plant, get my veg cycle out of the way, and then just put it on top. I'm not disturbing my system at all. And then she's just going to grow down in. And I think that's the reason that you created those particular type of pots, is it not?
Yeah, that was really Steve Cantwell, coming out of the fact of labor efficiencies and reducing and eliminating transplant shock is going to be the biggest factors there. If you can eliminate or reduce transplant shock and have that beautiful growing plant never take a step back, you're increasing your yield potentials. You can't even quantify that in a certain sense. So that's the thing with these living soil pot, or excuse me, the bottomless pot. And it comes down to a labor thing, putting the liner on the inside of that small of a container and only us charging $2.50 for it. It's like that for a certain sense. I'd have to, raise the price significantly to add the liner to it. So also it comes down to, when you're doing those seedlings, those small pots, a lot of times people have a different soil mixture or a different, aeration level to those smaller containers. So I think that's another reason why Steve Cantwell said, you know what, I don't need the liner. I'm not interested. I just want just normal fabric. And that also helps him know what the roots are doing as well. So when he starts seeing the roots popping out of the bottom or popping out of the side, he knows, okay, maybe I'm going to start bottom watering these and forcing those roots to grow to the bottom and absorb that water. So, that's the goal of the bottomless pots is, we fill it with soil. And usually you do in its own individual saucer. That's the easiest way to do it is get a 1 gallon saucer, put your fabric there, fill it with soil, probably 3/4 of the way up, put your clone in there, fill it the rest of the way with soil, and don't move it. Don't touch it for pretty much the first 2 weeks. You're going to start seeing root hairs pop out of the side of the fabric, which is another reason for not having the liner.
And air pruning, obviously.
Air pruning, and then they should be gathering at the bottom of the container because you should start bottom watering it. Obviously maybe once a week you can do a feeding and get the top of it there. But the real goal was just to not touch the roots and just take that little baby and set it right on top of the soil. And this really truly speaks to the people that are no-till. If you're hardcore 100% no-till, this should be the only thing you look at because you're never disturbing your soil. Now, I talk to experienced growers all the time. They're like, I can't concave the soil a little bit and plant a little bit. I'm like, of course, dude, do whatever feels right. You know what I mean? Like if you've got
your mulch layer at least.
Oh yeah, of course. You create a little, mulch layer and get that direct connection, But typically it takes about 4 days for that plant to be Velcroed to the soil, where it's just rooted down. And it seems like you should be top watering that bottomless pot for the first 4 or 5 days, obviously to keep that going and keep it not from drying out in those conditions. But once it's rooted, you shouldn't really have to be watering that root ball very often. It should also be wicking up from your soil mass slightly. Yeah. And all the feeder roots that are looking for liquid should be diving deep and getting that liquid, mining it from the soil. So.
So let's jump into the transplant pots where it's got the Velcro. Now we're mentioning, because I think it was just one side before, but now you've got both sides that the Velcro comes out.
We've always done it. We've always done it for both sides, and you could see it's kind of the evolution of our products. Now that we have the bottomless pots, the sales of the transplanters have kind of just dived off. Honestly, the last year or two. They're nowhere as near popular as the bottomless pots, but that has a thick 1-inch wide Velcro that can be washed and reused. You can simply just take a pressure washer and pressure wash the dirt out of the Velcro. They're great. I have some. I actually had some custom made ones, some 15-gallon ones made with a liner in there. So I have living soil transplanters in my backyard. But yeah, that's kind of the glory of working here is I get a weird idea and I just walk out to the warehouse and get them to make me one.
Why not? R&D happens everywhere, at the coffee shop, in the grow, it doesn't matter. It just, hey, let's try this.
Yeah, that's why I'd love to do this at my house because I've got like 20 different versions of fabric pots in my backyards with plants just bursting out of them, going crazy. My backyard has kind of been my little oasis that I've redone, and all the plants from the Soil Summit, whenever we had like an event or I do a booth, I'll buy plants and I'll put them in pots just to have at the booth and have it more of a personal experience. Well, I get to take those home. In my own garden. So.
That's cheating, man. That's cheating. Didn't Amy tell you that?
No, it's not. Yeah, man. I got some Carolina jessamines. I got lavenders. I've got 3 different versions of aloe vera. I've got an edible version of aloe vera because it doesn't have spots on it, so you can eat it. There's interesting stuff I've scored over the years.
Oh, you gotta like that, and it shows the passion for plants and for the job that you're doing. What you have created in your own home grow, and like we showed pictures on round 1 with you last week of your grow, and it looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I gotta learn, man. I gotta plant later in the season. That's just
You
they're
kept
too
saying
big. They
that,
cause me
yeah.
to. Oh, man. I can't believe I'm saying that as a grower, but the plants are too big. It's too much to deal with. I'm gonna have to ask for help.
Yeah.
It's like you want to keep it contained. You want to be able to manage it yourself. You don't want to have to spend extra money that you don't need to. This year, I'm gonna
Yes.
have to. So it's like,
Yeah. Oh well, you suffer. I'm saying you suffering. Oh, all that extra weed you have in storage, this fall, you're just suffering for it, man.
yeah, that's life right now. California.
Yeah, yeah. Well, being up in the north here and dealing with the cold climates, I'm of course going to be indoors. So I'll be getting some of the lined. Um, but I'm wondering if I shouldn't in testing, just get a little bit of everything to test everything, for people that are growing indoors, in any kind of environment. Because if you're growing indoors, doesn't matter if you're in Texas or Australia, indoors is indoors. You're controlling your VPD, you're controlling all of those aspects. So then it doesn't really matter, what you're doing. You want to know, this is the one that I should be using.
And size too. Once
Mhm.
you get over like a 45, a 65-gallon pot, you've got so much mass. You're going to have that moisture. You're going to have that living soil happen. So the biggest
Yeah.
thing I preach is just get into the largest soil mass you can afford to get into, and then do your best to take the weight off your shoulders and count on soil testing and microscopy and everything we were just talking about in this episode. And it's the easiest, cheapest way to get to award-winning cannabis is to
Mhm.
take the weight off your shoulders and use science. Use soil testing, sap testing, tissue testing. Use the soil doctor. Use,
Yeah.
so many different people we have out there now that are educated that can look at these soil tests. Like you've got Brandon Rust from,
Yeah.
Bakoshi Earthworks. You've got the guys that build a soil. They can recommend stuff. I mean, you've got so many
Yeah.
different routes, and it's like, I like to talk to a customer and say, okay, you got your whole setup from Build a Soil. Well, go ring them up and get all the free knowledge from them because you spent money from them. They owe you free knowledge. They owe you help. They owe you making sure that you're successful with it. And I think
Yeah.
all of our proponents in Living Soil, the really successful companies, they'll spend as much time as they need to make sure you're successful. Kiss Organics, those are amazing people.
Yeah.
Dr. Ben Higgins and Tad Hussey, those people, those are another group of people that will just get on the phone with you and talk for hours,
Well,
give you
yeah, and
free knowledge.
and they love what they do and they want you to succeed, because what is the best marketing campaign? It's that guy looking at his buddies going, "This is what you got to use, man."
And it's irrefutable. It's irrefutable. When you get a
Exactly.
clone from a buddy and then you bring him back to flower and he's like, this ain't what I gave you. I can't believe you grew it better than me. You know what I mean? You see this whole world transform in their brain and they're like, fuck.
Man, I never got those flavors out of this plant before. How did you do this?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think one to notate is I'm doing a lot of work with Grower for Life on
Okay.
Instagram. Grower for Life is very, very well known here in California for his high quality grape pie. That's a strain that he grows. He's grown it like for the
Oh,
last 20 years straight.
yeah.
And he's one of the most knowledgeable growers that I've ever talked to and helped out. And now I'm helping him because now he's like, I'm seeing issues on the synthetic side of things and the soil he was
Yeah.
using. So we've got him to switch over to Kiss Organic soil, and we've got him to use our microbial products. And he's doing sap testing and he's doing soil testing, and he's now reporting some of the best growth that he's seen in the last 20 years out of this strain, and trying to get back that waxy leaf,
Yeah.
that beautiful green, perfect waxy
Healthy.
leaf that
Yeah.
is irrefutably going to be the best version of it he's ever grown. So
Yeah.
I'd love to see Grower for Life on here. My buddy Blair, he's amazing.
Well, you'll just have to put me in contact with him, and then like I'll invite everybody on that has something to say and isn't just bro science. I want the real science, and I don't want to put out the misinformation. I want good information for anybody that finds this channel.
Yeah, we actually had to go through and test his RO system, and his RO
Mhm.
system wasn't correctly remediating his water, which was also creating issues.
Mhm.
So, you should be testing your RO system every once in a while, which was something I was like, oh shit,
Just the
you
ppm
know.
meter, you mean?
Yeah, or we sent out a simple water test. It was like 10
Okay.
bucks for a local water test. You can just Google water test near you and it's check those chloride levels or those being
Mhm.
remediated from the system because you have to replace your membrane filters every once in a while. And he was in this,
Yeah.
okay, I have to replace it every 6 months. He was
Yeah.
always doing that and not checking the water. But what if the water source changes and it needs to be every 3 months now because
Mm.
something changed in the city and the
Mhm.
city's using different chemicals now. Maybe they switched from chlorine to chloramine and chloramine does not aerate out of the water like chlorine does.
Yeah. Well,
So,
you look at I'm on a well, and whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, my water changes with the seasons as the ground freezes, etc. Even traffic, like I have what's called a tank farm, a mile away, or not even about a quarter mile away, where they haul in tanker trucks of diesel, etc. And if there's a lot of traffic on that road going by me, I'll actually get sulfur smell in my water. And if they're not busy, I won't have that sulfur smell.
mm, I'm
So the
seeing
ground
very,
impact actually makes a difference too.
yeah. I'm seeing major differences in my well water this year. I have to aerate it for about an hour for it
Mm,
to get back up to 6.3, 6.5, the viable range, because it's coming out of my well is coming like right when it lands in my 275 gallon tank that I use. It's like almost 4.3, 4.5,
yeah.
like super, super low, scary low. So I've got to sit there and aerate it for, it's the first thing I do is I'll fill up my reservoir and then get the aero mixer pump raging. Because the aero mixer guys just hooked me up. That thing's a fucking game changer, man. If
Cool.
you
Cool.
can afford it or you can go down that route and get the little speed controller thing, the volume knob on that babe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
You
that's a
can
fun
move a
toy.
lot of water with air. People don't understand just how much, like we're talking millions of gallons an hour just off an air pump,
Yeah,
you
get a
know?
spa pump. A spa pump
Yeah.
with a 2-inch wide thing and like a 3 foot piece of PVC pipe right in the bottom.
Yeah.
Should be rolling. Those things are like $100 on Amazon.
Yeah, it's actually like I know when I was setting up my aquaponics system, I got into really looking at how to move, water with air because it's so much cheaper, and those pumps you can actually repair because all it is a bloody rubber diaphragm instead of it replacing impellers and stuff like that. A lot simpler system, and I think that's what people really need to look for is the simple cost-effective way that gives them the best results for what they want in their environment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's all about the soil, less about my container. You can do great in a solo cup, but if it's the quality of the soil, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's not the
it's the
container. It's
biology that's in the soil, and then giving the biology access to all the different components that it needs, not only to make more biology, but to actually build the cells of the plant. Without the nutrients there for them to use to build that building per se, you're not going to have a very healthy plant.
oh yeah, part of that
Anyway,
system.
my friend, we should probably cut it there. We're at an hour and a half, and I think I got my questions answered, and it was something that I wanted everybody to understand of why you have two different types of pots available, but it's really, indoor, outdoor, north, south, and how much moisture is in your area to whether you need, to not have the moisture escaping or to literally have the moisture escaping.
Yep, and just reach out to us on social media, Grassroots Fabric Pots on Instagram, Facebook, or just call the office here. We're a small family company, and we would love to do everything we can to ensure your success.
And you're probably going to get Tyler on the phone. Unless he's on this podcast, because then we block you out. Okay, guys, we've got Andy on Wednesday night, and we got the girls, the Sun and the Moon, back on Thursday. Sorry, I had my power go out for 2.5 hours last Thursday, So we didn't have the show last Thursday, but they will be back on this Thursday. So other than that, peace out, everybody, and we'll catch you on Wednesday.